population's attention to a number of milestones in the behavior of the opposition leader and her cronies. I think it was 2003, my wife bought a piece of land in Mason Hall and paid $3.2 million to develop it, to convert it into saleable plots. While that was being done, Ganga Singh and the UNC started a national campaign against that project, which with its own name, you would have heard about Land Date. That was simply a professional person, married to a Tobagonian, and was spending significant sums of her earnings on a development in Mason Hall. That seemed to have upset the UNC, because as far as they are concerned, people like me and others ought only to have property or business. And we can only get it if we thief it or somebody give it to us. So Land Date became the subject of a number of inquiries because allegations were made about my conduct. And those inquiries and all that followed, everything that followed through there, cost taxpayers $15 million and carried with it an integrity commission that had listened to gossip, packaged gossip, and sent it to the DPP, scandalizing me. That resulted in the Integrity Commission having to resign in disgrace and I having to be paid substantial amount of damages, and taxpayers paying in a variety of ways a total of about $15 million for one lie told by the UNC attempting to besmirch my character. So that was Land Date. Soon after that, I became leader of the PNM somewhere along the way, and I had to lead the party into a general election. A preparation was made, a Tobagonian was found, and in the build-up to the election of 2015, you had Vanilla Allen Toppin going to the parliament, Wade Mark Speaker approving a picture of a house where I was supposed to have raped some student of mine when I was a teacher. That is on the Hansard. That reprehensible conduct was meant, according to the UNC, to knock me out of the 2015 election. Of course, the scandal was not delivering the way they wanted it to deliver, but the attempt was made once again on character assassination. That was 2015. We're leading up to the 2020 election, and once again, typical of the UNC playbook, we had this question about fake oil at Petro-Trin, and oil being stolen and money being had improperly by a friend of the Prime Minister. And this friend of the Prime Minister's story and fake oil went on all of 2019 in preparation for the election to come. By the time we got to within months of the election, and the friend of the Prime Minister was not delivering the knockout blow that they thought they had, the member for Orapooch East, Rudal Munilal, came into the parliament and put on the Hansard that he had traveled to Miami and found a bank wherein Mr. Bash of AV Oil had paid $4 million to me. That matter is now in the court, is the subject of high court proceedings where I have sued Dr. Mulinal. And of course, you know, when they have all this information on the political platform, chapter and verse, as soon as you sue them and it's time to present their defense in the court, it's all kinds of calling for time, asking for time, and appealing this and that. Can't present the actual easy information that was being waved around the platform. So that is a lawsuit that is in the court where the $4 million that I got from AV Drilling is the subject of evidence to be produced by Dr. Munilal, because I have sued him for slander. And of course, Mr. Bash has sued Mr. Kanda Prasad Bisesa for slander as well. In the meantime, taxpayers on that lie got Petro-Trin in trouble, and taxpayers are now finding themselves at the end of the arbitration to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to the Bash business and family. But of course, the intention there was to use the implied criminal conduct of the Prime Minister through his friend to score political points. That was then. Now we have a very important election in Tobago, and I'll come back to the importance of this election a little later on. But suffice it to say, there's a very important election in Tobago. And the week of the election, the playbook is used again where a brazen attempt is made to assassinate the character of the Prime Minister, who happens to be a Tobagonian. And if you can get Tobagonians to buy into this, it should influence how they vote on Monday. So it is not accidental that election week, having laid the groundwork for this attack that I saw on Tuesday morning, what it was all about. But I should have known, because the first thing I saw the UNC doing is saying that Alan Warner, who's a contractor well known here in Tobago, the Warner family in business, well known in Tobago, out of the blue, a matter that has been the subject of parliamentary questions and examination before. Suddenly the UNC didn't know enough, but they knew that Alan Warner built the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago. This was a $20 million project to put this facility here in Tobago. It first attracted UNC attention when it was approved in the budget to be the work program of the budgetary year. They objected to it in the budget. And of course, they wanted to know who was the contractor, how much it was going to cost, and so on and so on. So they knew that a contractor and who the contractor was. They knew. But recently, they came out and said that the contractor on this project was Alan Warner. And when that was shown not to be true, because to the best of my knowledge, all that the Warner business did in this project was to pave the driveway. And from my information from UDCOT, this property was built by a contractor called Mr. Parks, I think it's a Tobago contractor. So, but UNC a few weeks ago suddenly discovered that this was done by Alan Warner. What they were doing there was laying the groundwork. Then when that was shown not to be true, they then accused, I had to answer in the parliament about Warner getting contract on the Crown Point Airport, the A&R Robinson Airport. I had to find out then that the size of the contract that they got down there and whatever's going on there was $45,000, and they were not a part of the major contract that is going on there. No subcontracts have been awarded down there. But the UNC came out naming this project and the airport project as big projects that this mega contractor got in Tobago, friend of the Prime Minister, and business partner of the Prime Minister. Because of course it's common knowledge that in 2018 October, as part of my hobby and other involvement in farming and agriculture, I have a farm in Tobago, and in the farm, partnered there with Alan Warner, which I started in 2018 when I was, it started in 2008, sorry, 2008, when I was a backbencher in the Manning government. So that seems to have bothered them. So here comes Tuesday now, and having laid the groundwork about this Tobago contractor who's a friend of the Prime Minister, exactly like the AV drilling situation, I see Mr. Saddam Hussein, who, incidentally, is the shadow attorney general, because he's a lawyer. He's also a member of parliament, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So I don't want you all to believe that this is a mistake. It is a deliberate strategy meant to mislead and manipulate the public mind. Saddam Hussein comes out, and he's quoted here in Tuesday's Guardian, and I just quote a paragraph. He said, as of last week, checks were done by the UNC at the commission, meaning the Integrity Commission, and it was revealed that the Prime Minister had failed to declare that he bought property from Aine's investment since February 2019. This is a violation of the law. He claimed that the UNC, I'm quoting again, that the UNC checks found that some of the other persons who purchased townhouses had all declared their purchases to the Integrity Commission. But he questioned why Rowley was allegedly hiding the purchase, noting he had broken the law. And then he quoted several sections of the Integrity in Public Life Act, and he stamped it a scandal. That was Tuesday in The Guardian. And of course, Wednesday, he's back, headline again, quoting from the Express. He said, checks at the Integrity Commission showed Rowley did not declare this townhouse to the Integrity Commission. The Prime Minister did not declare his ownership of the property to the Integrity Commission, neither did he declare that he got a $500,000 discount. This is the Shadow Attorney General in the Parliament, lawyer and experienced person. And a point to be noted is that the minute anybody tells you that they found out from the Integrity Commission what your declaration was, it should raise alarms to the public. Because for good reason, the Integrity in Public Life Act requires 2 forms to be filled out. One, Form A, where you have to put all your details, bank account number, address of the bank, how much money was in the bank, your credit card, how much you pay about during the year, every property you own, every old car you have, all your life stories in Form A. But Form A is a secret document. Staff at the Integrity Commission have to swear an oath to handle that. And if they breach that secrecy, the penalties are severe. And Form B is the form that the public has access to, where on Form B, you're required not to put the details of any of your business, as I've just mentioned, but wherever you may have a conflict. For example, as Prime Minister, I have some shares in FCB, in Plipdeco, in NEL, those things, because the government is involved and I'm Prime Minister, I have to put that there. So you can see, they go there, you see, I declare that I have these shares and there may be a conflict. That is on Form B. Or if somebody gives you a gift, like a motor car or some valuable gift, you name that. Those are the kinds of things you see on Form B. You will never see on Form B my bank account, which property I own, how much property I own, or anything like that. And Form B is the only form that a member of the public can go and look at. You cannot get access to Form A, because Form A has very sensitive information of all persons. Everybody who's an officer in public life covered by the commission, your Form A is secret. So how then could this gentleman be telling the country that he and the UNC, which is Wade Mark, Kamla Prasad Bissessa, and Saddam Hussein, that they checked at the Integrity Commission and discovered that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago bought a property or got a property which he's hiding from the commission in so doing and does not declare it to the commission, and therefore the Prime Minister is guilty of criminal conduct equivalent to what Basio Pandey was accused of, and the Prime Minister should now be charged and go to jail because you hide your property, equal for all of us. Since Basio Pandey, and these are their words, since Basio Pandey was charged, the Prime Minister should be charged. Not to mention that there are 2 different things completely. But I raised the point about how could a frontline person in the Parliament, who has been filling out these forms every year, I presume, because he too has to fill out the forms. So he knows what goes into Form A. He knows what goes into Form B. He knows you cannot see information from Form A unless, of course, somebody in the Integrity Commission breaches the confidence as required by the law and feeds that information to the opposition. So the question is, what really happened there? Is it that the Shadow Attorney General had access to information which says a lot about the security at the Integrity Commission? Is it that? Or is it that Saddam Hussein is lying to the public in order to make an intervention in the campaign, in the election in Tobago on behalf of the PDP? Because it is not by accident that it happens this week. And I'm responding today at the first opportunity I could respond. I just came in from Barbados last night. First opportunity, last working day before the election. Strategically placed. Accusation on my head that I'm a criminal. I'm involved in corruption with Alan Warner and this contractor in Tobago. I got a big gift and I've hidden it from the Integrity Commission. And interestingly enough, those of us who have confidence in the fourth estate, you have not distinguished yourself in these matters. Because the first question you were supposed to ask Saddam Hussein is, where did you get that information from? Checks at the Integrity Commission. So you were able to check a Form A at the Integrity Commission, or somebody was able to give you that information from the commission? I've seen nobody in the media asking that question. But you run behind them with anything they say. He say, she say. That is the media. And the regular attempt at character assassination is now put before the public as the news of the day. So today's headline in the papers is that I have questions to answer at the Integrity Commission because Saddam Hussein checked the commission, checked my documents, and discovered that I'm hiding a townhouse on Sherburne Road that I got from a contractor who didn't build the Prime Minister's residence, who didn't work at the airport, who paved the driveway here and did $45,000 down at the airport. That's according to the UNC. What is the truth? What is the truth? Now we have an Integrity Commission who has two jobs. One is to hold people accountable if they hide assets. And two, to exonerate people who come under attack from the likes of Saddam Hussein and the UNC. This allegation was made on Monday night on a political platform by the Shadow Attorney General. And I think it attracted the attention of the Integrity Commission, because I then see in the media that the Integrity Commission intends to discuss this matter today. And what does that put in the minds of the population? It puts in the minds of the population exactly what Saddam Hussein wanted, that the Prime Minister had committed some heinous crime, corruption to boot. So we're all in the same boat, whether it's a UNC cabinet or the PNM cabinet, whether Kamla Prasad, Bissessa or Keith Rowley, we're all in the same thing. And the Integrity Commission is now interested in my conduct, and they're meeting today to discuss it. Right? To discuss what? This is a copy of my 2019 Form A, Integrity in Public Life Act submission. If I turn to page 9, where all the property owned by my wife and myself, and one is shared by my children as well, you will see there are 6 properties listed here. The one at the top is my house in Goodwood Park, dating back to 1985. The one at the bottom, the most recent acquisition, says address and description of property, including land and floor area. Shervan Inez Development. That's the last one you see there, because it's the most recent acquisition. In whose name held? Keith and Sharon Rowley. Date of acquisition, 22nd of February 2019. Original cost, 1.2 million. Estimated value at December 21, 19, 1.2 million. How then could Saddam Hussein exercise the media in this country and the world, I dare say? Because when the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is being accused of corruption in this way, it doesn't stay in our borders, it's going worldwide. Because I saw that an advertisement, everything they say is on the net, on the internet. And there are internet trolls by the thousands, and they live there, spreading lies, character assassination, and mischief as the official opposition of Trinidad and Tobago. I did not declare, according to Saddam Hussein, that I bought a property and I'm hiding it from the Integrity Commission because some corrupt practice went on there. And of course, waving around documents on platform. This red file I got from my wife this morning as I was heading for the airport, because my wife is very meticulous in these matters. These are the documents between the lawyers that did the transaction. These are copies of the checks that paid for the property and the stamp duty. Of course, the UNC wouldn't know about that because they don't deal that. They deal in getting things from contractor. And I'm not surprised that they're so surprised that as Prime Minister and as wife of a Prime Minister, we will have these transactional documents. This is a copy of the deed, which is a public document. And you would see on the deed, you would see that the owners of the property, all there. On a UNC platform, this means trouble for me. But on my platform and here today, this means exoneration for me. That is my signature there. Owners of the property, Keith Rowley, attorney at law here, signed off here, Sharon Rowley, all the various signatures here. Ine's investment, and here it is. Signed by the within named Keith Rowley and Sharon Clark Rowley. Look at them. This is a public document, a deed. But the UNC would have you believe that this property passed from Warner, the Ine's company, where Warner is the principal, to me, and I have to hide it. And I didn't declare to the Integrity Commission. So what do I do now? Having been accused of such criminal conduct, aimed at heinous character assassination, what do I do? Well, the first thing I have to tell you, especially you here in Tobago, especially those in the black suits and the green jerseys, this is the kind of company you're keeping. This is what you're trying to import into Tobago. So I've passed this morning to my lawyers to determine, because I take legal advice, to determine whether I have been slandered by Saddam Hussein. That accusation of obtaining from a contractor and hiding a property and not declaring it, I want to know what recourse I have. Because see, it has been done before. Another UNC office holder, one called Brian Stone, who you saw leading the choir last week in the march that they had there. You wouldn't believe. He driving through Glencoe, saw a construction project going on, goes on the radio station and tells the world that that is a construction project of apartments being built for me by Syrians. I took him to court because that's where I go when I'm wronged. I took him to court. I won in the matter. He was fined $375,000. Well, of course, he's still in the court playing around with that, with appeals and so on, hoping to get away or dying before he pays, something like that. But that's what they do. They're just out of the blue, whatever they think will work for them politically, they just say anything and do anything, and the level of nastiness knows no bounds. I just gave you 5 examples of the UNC's lies at character assassination aimed at me for political benefit. And this, on election weekend, is the UNC's contribution to the campaign in Tobago, where they're trying to support the PDP by giving Tobagonians the impression that a Tobago boy who is now Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and has some interest in this election, I have questions to answer for criminal conduct in Tobago. And they don't care who they destroy in the process, you know. They don't care. Because you here in Tobago, if you know anything at all, especially if you're from Moriah or Mason Hall, you will know that Alan Warner and the Warner family came from a shop in Moriah Main Road. The father was a shopkeeper. They were in business of that nature. They grew up in business. They did well here in Tobago. Alan went into all kinds of things, eventually got into construction and is doing quite well. So well as a Tobago contractor, has gone to Trinidad now, bought into property and business in Trinidad in concrete and asphalt paving. I think every Tobagonian should be proud of that. That one of your successful companies didn't just stay within the borders of the Tobago beach, but has gone into the bigger economy of Trinidad and is competing for work down there. Suppose he gets a government contract down there, what will the UNC accuse me of? But this is also on behalf of the contractors that they are in bed with, who are using the opposition to tarnish the Warner company and the Warner business, who is there competing with them for the business in Trinidad. And interestingly enough, Tobagonians will join them in that. So the next thing you will expect to hear is that, having been tarnished in this way, if I am not able to prevent them from going further with this lie, they will ask for the contractor to be blacklisted, as they did with the AV drilling matter. When they started the lies with AV drilling, the first thing they called for is for the company to be closed down and the field to be taken away. Petrotrin went and did that, of course. I know the outcome of that. But if they manage to get Warner blacklisted in Trinidad, their contractor friends who they're competing with would be very happy. Stay in Tobago and subscribe to what has been hammered into Tobago's children, that black people can't do business. Not that we have successful businesses in Tobago that should grow beyond Tobago and into Trinidad, where our main economies, whether it's agriculture, whether it's health services, whether it's education, whether it's contracting. No, they are busy pushing secession for Tobago. They've sent their so-called experts to Tobago to draw a line boundary between Trinidad and Tobago, and feeding that nonsense to the PDP politicians who will do anything for office. A man comes to Tobago, he's an independent person. But those of us in Trinidad know that he's a mouthpiece and a card-carrying member of the UNC. The UNC went even further, because it's not now the UNC has given up on Tobago. In case you Tobagoans don't know it, the UNC has given up on Tobago as a political place to fish. And they have been consistently using Tobagoans like TOP, whoever else, and now the PDP, to put in Tobago's minds, Tobagonians' minds, that they could do something differently. They came to Parliament with a bill in 2013. In the bill, they were talking about boundary between Trinidad and Tobago. I was the only person from the opposition that spoke. And when I spoke, the bill collapsed immediately, because I had to point out to them, in this archipelagic state, if you go and put any boundary between Trinidad and Tobago, it will have dire consequences for both islands off the east coast of these two islands. That's as far as they've gone. Putting into legislation a bill before the Parliament, basically to separate Trinidad from Tobago by an established legal law by hard boundary, and then have politicians in Tobago telling you they're winning election and they want secession. And I could tell you all, go in Hansard and elsewhere, the consistent attack on those of us in the PNM who support Tobago's future is that Tobago is getting too much. Too much. Even before we came with the bill recently to increase the amount that Tobago is getting, the argument is that on a per capita basis, Tobago is getting too much. You only have 60,000 people in Tobago, and look what Tobago is getting. And we are to get a similar amount in Trinidad per head. Of course, that argument has no basis, because the Tobago House of Assembly has responsibilities in Tobago far beyond the responsibilities of any corporation in Trinidad. And of course, the country is Trinidad and Tobago, and both islands will settle themselves on an agreement that is balanced, equitable, and sustainable. Not by any political party counting heads here and heads there. So that is their contribution. And of course, I got a benefit. And I was supposed to declare the benefit. Well, I get a lot of benefits. In this very document, you will see I got a car bought by government permission, and the car cost $300,000. But there's another column in here which asks you, what is the value of the car? The value is about $600,000-$700,000. Am I supposed to go and say, well, I get a gift and extract the difference between the two and say, well, there's a gift there and I have to report that as a gift? Any of you who know anything about real estate would know that real estate purchase is rooted in negotiations. What the buyer is prepared to pay. You're going to buy a house, and the person wants $5 million for the house. You don't want to say, okay, that's the price of the house. You make an offer of what you will pay. And sometimes if the buyer doesn't get, after months or sometimes years, the buyer doesn't get what they want to get or expect to get or what they advertise it for, they may very well come right back to you because your offer is the best offer. That's the market price. In this particular situation, the UNC analysis that I got a $500,000 benefit on this matter is absolute foolishness. I, as a buyer, and they don't understand that word. This is purchase, because you also see in these documents source of funds. There are two forms in here where I sign and my wife sign source of funds coming from our respective savings. The UNC wouldn't know nothing about that because they would have wanted it for free. Contractor give them. We're not in that. We purchased this. Among the first, if not the first purchaser from this project when drawings became available and approved. And what would be the what is the ballpark price that these units are going to come in under? And the developer will tell me, okay, that's something I think I could be interested in. I commit to one at the price of 1.2 million. That's a deal you've made before the property is even finished, before it is even completed. In fact, as a matter of fact, even before the construction has got very far to the foundation, I think they were probably just beyond foundation stage. And of course, if you're buying at that stage on an estimated price, and you happen to be an early purchaser, you get the benefit of that. Because many people have done that, and the project failed. And what happened to your money if you paid only money? Or you wait until it is ready. And of course, that you may recall that before this story came up, the first assault on Alan Warner was that he was my business partner, as if that is a crime, and he was my friend, as if that is a crime. That's when they were laying the foundation. I don't have to hide from anybody that Alan Warner is my business partner. As a matter of fact, I will hold out to the UNC and Ms. Prasad Bisasa in particular that what she would have observed is that I have friends who are decent, law-abiding citizens. And none of them built my house. None. I built my own houses. But there was a house being built in Philippines where that contractor ran away from the country the day after the election in 2015. Another house right above us here built with pumpkin and cucumber by the said contractor. So what they're trying to do is to rope the PNM into what they have lived and who and what they are. I have no difficulty identifying my friends. So when they scandalized me with land date, and I went to the Commission of Inquiry, I was asked, is Emily Elias your friend? And the answer is yes. And when they sought to scandalize me as being the friend of Nizambash in Pinal, the answer is yes. And when they come to the parliament asking me if Alan Warner is my friend, the answer is yes. I have friends who are not running from the police. I have friends who I don't depend on. Why is it that it is necessary in this country that if I and my wife buy a townhouse in Tobago, my wife is a lawyer just about to retire, umpteen decades of service working 7 days a week, and somebody discover that she purchased a property, and that is a scandal according to the UNC. And to get a property, she getting it or both of us getting it together has to involve somebody giving it to us in some corrupt practice. Is that what it is? That for us and for people like us, if we end up with a property, we have to thief it? I have never been unemployed a day in my life except when I was at university studying. I've never been to a whorehouse. I've never drank alcohol and drunk. I'm minding one family. I've never bought cigarettes. Maybe they should go and add up all of those money things that they spend there and see if they can buy a jet plane. But that being so, the only way they could scandalize me is to come with this foolishness And I would have expected, honestly, that since this was coming from the official opposition through the mainstream media, that the Integrity Commission, instead of talking about discussing this thing today, they could have easily told the country on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday that it is not so. Because the Integrity Commission has to be able to exonerate you if they can. You have the form in your department. The opposition is saying that the member has not declared it. You know they have declared it. Why are you allowing this lie to take root in the country? And then talking about going to discuss. Discuss what? I have complied with the law here. And I have paid a purchase price that the vendor was willing to part with it for in an open market arrangement. I negotiated no discount. My wife and my family must have been the only idiot who bought a townhouse here in the middle of the pandemic. And of course, what do you buy? How do you know what I bought? How do you know what condition the building was in? How do you know? Let me explain something else to you. Yesterday I was coming down on the plane. I was coming down on the plane yesterday, and this is your takeaway copy from Carl. And browsing through it. Look at what is in there today, because this is in November, December. Chauvin Road, the said Chauvin Road, where we would have paid 1.2 million in 2019. By January or December of 2018, somewhere about there, we committed and paid in February 2019, 1.2 million. I know these units, and you may know them too, on Chauvin Road. They're being offered for sale now, at 1.25 million on Chauvin Road. A couple hundred yards away from where the Chinese project is. And of course, these come with all appliances. And of course, granite countertop, large pool and gazebo. How do you know what was being bought? You don't know what the contractor's position is here, whether he will accept $1 million or 1.1 million, depending on how much pressure is in the bank for this. You don't know that. Why are you pretending to know that? Why is Saddam Hussein pretending to know why a contractor will sell for 1.2 million in 2019? And the only reason why he's doing that is because that's the best they could do for the PDP this election weekend. Try to scandalize me. But I've done well so far on those who attempt to sacrifice my character. And I have confidence in our judiciary that they can differentiate between malice, foolishness, idiocy, and naked politics of failed politicians. I'm a Tobagonian, and I don't have to justify spending my money in Tobago. A couple of weeks ago, I heard Farley on platform campaigning on my sheep in Mason Hall. I love the exercise. It's more than a hobby. As a matter of fact, my blood pressure goes down when I hang around that farm. So sorry, Farley. And of course, I export out of Tobago to Trinidad, and that makes me feel good. And I don't have to hide the fact that my family made purchases in property in Tobago. But the danger here is a Tobago contractor who is beyond reproach is now targeted by the UNC in Trinidad at the very highest level. And they don't care. And they're hoping that enough Tobagonians could be so irresponsible to join them in this move to separate Tobago from Trinidad. Because this is what this is, attempting to get a Tobago party that is on a secession platform to do what the UNC want done, which is to separate Tobago from Trinidad. And that's why I am in this fight. I'm not a candidate here on Monday. I'm not voting here on Monday. I took very little part in the campaign. I left it to the Tobagonians, their leadership, and their candidates to fight in Tobago for victory. But when it comes to separating Tobago from Trinidad, I will use every sinew and muscle in my body to prevent that, because the average Tobagonian is better off as an integral part of Trinidad and Tobago as against being on their own, led by those who have already led themselves astray. The UNC has made character assassination and strategies towards character assassination their major political input. Every Monday night, they're calling somebody's name. In this very project here, they're telling you that the Warner interest built 46 apartments on that complex and apparently gave them away because the governor of the central bank is the owner of one. You know where they went from there? Not that Tobagoans are unhappy that the governor of the central bank holidays in Tobago and owns property in Tobago. No, it is the UNC that sees that because the governor of the central bank would have owned a property that was built by a friend of the prime minister, he is now to be attacked, his character assailed, his professionalism attacked, and goes into the central bank saying he is not independent, he is a tool of the government because he has an apartment in Tobago where the prime minister has one, built by the prime minister's friend. And therefore the country's monetary policy is not independent. That is the kind of hogwash that the UNC gets involved in this country. And they don't care who they destroy in the process. Private individuals purchase here, the UNC have the name, calling the name Pandong, and asking the speaker to explain why her husband must explain how he got. We don't get things, UNC, we buy these things. How the speaker husband got a townhouse in Chauvin from the prime minister friend. So I have a friend in Tobago building townhouses and giving it away like Smarties, like Sweetie. And nobody will challenge them, you know. The media does not challenge the UNC on this foolishness. You allow them to get away with it. First you repeat it, then you amplify it, you become their echo chamber, and you won't see what they're doing. I have no question to answer. And in the event that the commission has questions for me, I stand ready to cooperate on any question they ask me, because there's no question they can ask me that I can answer. None. And as for the UNC having files on me, you could dig as much as you like. You'll find that I'm quite deep and I'm worth quite a lot. And the most I'm worth is my good name, my character, my integrity, my history, and my Tobago-ness. That's what I'm worth. So keep digging. If you have any questions, I'll take them now.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Liz Williams from TV6. Just wanted to find out from you so many deaths with respect to COVID-19.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Let's finish with this first. If you have any questions on this matter? I'll let you see this. Page 9 of this, you can look at it closely. And anything else you want to see. This is, I don't know if you ever seen anybody else's declaration before. Good? So we can conclude this and then we go on to something else if you wish. If you have any question on this matter, I'll take that question first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Camille McKechnie, Tobago Channel 5. Have you lost confidence in the Integrity Commission? You say that by now they should have answered and they should have said something. They're only now discussing the matter.
I'm not going to speak about it as loss of confidence. I'll talk about it as practice. I said the existence of the commission ought not only to be to try to prosecute wrongdoers. It also must be to exonerate people who find themselves in this situation. And it's not just this commission. I can go back to situations that happened before where people make allegations and the commission ought to be able to say, this is so, it is not so. Or if they investigate and they find that there's nothing wrong, it's important to be able to say so, especially when the subject matter has been of great national interest and propagated through the media and so on. We don't normally get that. But in this case, where the specific was on page 9, that there was no declaration, it's important for that to come out as a truth in whatever form. Otherwise, people like Saddam Hussein and Kamla Prasad Bissessa will get away or try to get away with heinous mischief in this country. You know, it's so important. When I was in Barbados, when I heard this, I started questioning myself. I started asking whether, in fact, in doing this form, because the form is very complicated and it's very detailed, had I really missed that out? I could have, because it's the first time I had to report it. The purchase was made in 2019, and it was the first time I had to report it. And maybe I was doubting myself. I came back last night and I went to my files, because I always keep a copy of what I have submitted to the commission. And I could not believe that this gentleman is there telling the country that he checked at the Integrity Commission and can confirm that there was no declaration of this particular property. And why would I hide the property? Because they think I got something I wasn't supposed to get. Because they think so.
Mr. Prime Minister, Liz again. With respect to this said matter, the Express is saying that questions would have been asked to you about the allegations, but we did not get an answer.
I didn't get an answer. That's
No,
not
we
true.
didn't.
I
Did
told
you
the Express
respond?
that the UNC is confusing purchase and thieving. That's what I told you. And I told you that I'll only be interested in what they have to say when I'm slandered. And that's why I'm interested now. But of course, I don't have to tell the Express how to do their work. If a citizen gets up and says, any citizen, that they check with the Integrity Commission and find that somebody didn't declare a property, I expect that there's somebody in the Express who knows something about the Integrity in Public Life Act and could ask for the public benefit, how did you do that? How did you check at the Integrity Commission to read my Form A? Because that is part of the educational process, you know. If that question was asked, the public could have been educated to know, well, no, you can't go and check somebody's Form A because Form A is secret. Only the Integrity Commission. Once you submit this form, only the Integrity Commission can deal with it. And if something has to be said about it, it can only be said about the Integrity Commission because the minute I sign this form, it becomes a highly confidential document between me and the Integrity Commission. There's no third partying in here. That's the point I'm making. So the Express can't say I didn't answer. They might not have liked the answer. They might not have figured what I was saying, but I did respond. And the only reason I'm here now is because by the time I got here today, is headline and confirmation, and this is going to go on till God knows how long. And all I'm doing is letting Tobagonians in particular know that this attempt to slander me and to besmirch my character is one huge UNC lie put out to assist the PDP on Monday. That's what it is. That's why I'm here this afternoon.
Mr. Prime Minister Kenisha George Harry, Newsday. Can you tell us when the declaration was filed, please?
This declaration was filed, I couldn't, let me see. This was filed on the 20th of December, 2020. Because what happens is that if you have a deadline up until May, that's the normal deadline. If you can't make that deadline, you can ask the commission for an extension, which usually the commission would grant. So that's why you see a late year filing. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that with respect to 2020, I filed that on Monday morning because I had asked for an extension, which expired on Wednesday. And I was to be in Barbados Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I made sure that I got it done on the weekend. I finished it on the weekend and it went in on Monday morning. Lo and behold, Monday night, they're on platform attacking my 2019 submission.
George Leacock, Radio Tampa.
Yes, George.
Prime Minister, the tendency to attack people in Tobago who appear to be successful is known. On the PDP campaign, there are two other issues concerning the warners that have come out. One, where there's a document purporting to be minute of the Executive Council of the THA agreeing to purchase a parcel of land from the Warners for $40 million, just 10 or 12 days before the past election. And two, there's a video circulating with an candidate, current assemblyman and candidate, apparently addressing workers on what is said to be the Warners compound, suggesting to those workers that the Warners company is one that gets jobs, and you should therefore vote PNM on Monday. Because I suppose if the PNM doesn't win, the Warners don't get jobs again. So I wanted you to comment on those two things.
I would not purport to want to comment on and discuss what jobs Warners get or don't get. What I know is that the Warners are competing for business in Tobago. And the Tobago House of Assembly has some government business. They are involved in competing for contracts. So I don't know, I guess they win some, they lose some. And by the same token, if workers are saying that their company, if somebody in the company is saying our company gets work in the THA, well, whoever it is, I don't know. But I wouldn't want to be the arbiter on that. But a candidate saying that, I don't know, maybe the candidate is employed, I don't know. But I would not want to be the one to be defending that or commenting on it. But when you talk about criminal conduct on my part, involving them, then I can comment.
Okay, can we move on now to COVID?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a situation in Tobago where yesterday, the highest number of COVID cases, I don't know if you saw the figures, 110 COVID new cases in Tobago. How would you say at this point or describe how COVID-19 pandemic has been treated by the present PNM administration? And are you worried for our citizens? So many people are dying.
Of course, I'm worried about our citizens, and it's one of the main worries that I have. But let us face it, we have been fighting this now for almost 2 years. And the course of the virus became known to us along the way. Before the Delta variant, the virility of the virus was known, and we were fighting it by a number of guidelines and protocols, not the least of which was accessing vaccines, because vaccination had a benefit in the fight against the virus. And then there was the mutation that created the Delta variant, which ravaged other countries. And we held our breath here because we're part of the world society, and we anticipated that somewhere along the way, the Delta variant would get here. And it did get here. We maintained our protocols, we upstamped our claim on vaccines, we put out extra effort into vaccinating the population, because one of the peculiarities of the Delta variant, why it was of such great interest to the world at large, is that it was more virulent than the other variants and the original virus. So once the Delta variant got among the population, the outcome of that was an easier rate of infection. And that is why we have been encouraging people being from day one, get vaccinated, because the potential to get infected by a Delta variant or any other is there, and therefore get vaccinated. Once the Delta variant is the main variant in the population, which it is apparently in Trinidad and Tobago now, that rate of increase is going to be there because that is a characteristic of the virus. However, it also is known that the people who got vaccinated, even if they get infected and you count them among the large number of infected people, they don't equivalently end up in the hospital ward or in the ICU. It is the people who are not vaccinated, when they get infected, they are the ones that occupy the hospital spaces mostly. Those are the facts of the situation. And my concern is that there's so many people in Tobago who decide to take on the virus, ride it out, not use the help given by the vaccine. And I must say, yeah, I'm a little disappointed in that, because Tobago's population and Tobago's isolation as an island gave us the possibility to have isolated the virus in Tobago. But we had to have a high level of vaccination. And it was relatively easy. If there was the personal responsibility and personal cooperation, it would have been relatively easy to vaccinate everybody in Tobago. But it just so happens that a significant number of people in Tobago decide that they don't want the vaccine and will not be vaccinated. And that stymie this hope and expectation that we could have had in Tobago, a population that was, able to demonstrate herd immunity, 90% vaccination, because there are some people who, for medical reasons determined by the doctors, would not be able to be vaccinated. And therefore, let's put those in the 5% bracket. We could have vaccinated every other person in Tobago if it was so required. We got the vaccines, we ran the programs, we had the staff, and people just decided they wanted to run the gauntlet with the virus. Because we ran this fight with the virus by, people having their choice of cooperating largely. We did make some interventions and had some regulations and some restrictions, but with respect to vaccination, right, it still is a situation where the choice is still there. And unfortunately, I think too many people in Tobago chose to guarantee their place in heaven and not take the risk of the mark of the beast being put on them, because that's what they call the vaccine. They determine the vaccine has some mark that will appear in heaven, and they will then be denied the pearly gates. Now, those are the things that we came up against. But initially, I thought it would have been easy. And I tell you something else too. I made sure as Prime Minister, running this response from the campaign, the management team, to make sure that at all times, there was enough vaccine in Tobago for everybody who wanted to be vaccinated at all times, even when vaccines were very scarce. So, unfortunately, the characteristic of the virus, the Delta virus, is one of high infection. But fortunately, we have about 20,000 people vaccinated, and that gives us some relief, but not as much as we could have had.
In light of the current figures and the trend, and so many people in terms of deaths daily running into double digits, is the government at this time looking at mandatory vaccinations? And on Sunday, I don't know if you saw it, there was protests by persons in Tobago calling for the beaches to reopen. I know that you said you're looking at it, and beaches can or may be opened before Christmas.
Well, what exactly do you understand by mandatory vaccination? The protests that they had in Trinidad about mandatory vaccine, they're protesting something that doesn't exist. We are not operating a mandatory vaccination program in Trinidad and Tobago. There are people who would not like to see the government encourage vaccination to protect the wider national community, because that will run counter to the points of views of who might be a minority. That's what that protest is about. And it was largely political. With respect to the beaches, it is not the beach itself that we're worried about, It's not being in the water or being sunned on the beach that we're worried about. It is the congregation and the partying around beaches that we're afraid of. And you here in Tobago know that. Because as people come to the beaches, part of the experience is some element of gathering in and around the beaches. I've heard it said that, well, we could have people go in a certain number, but for the logistics of managing that is not feasible. And of course, we now know that we cannot rely on the population to treat virus with the respect that it deserves, that it is dangerous, and that one life lost is one too many. One person infected and did not making it is something that was avoidable. However, on balance, I have been saying that at the first opportunity, we will want to return to the beaches, and I made some suggestions, and maybe in the not too distant future, we could add that risk to the risk package. Because again, just as we were about to think that we could increase our risk package, we start hearing about Omicron. And of course, the warning that came with that was dire. We had a warning on Delta, and people are saying now that this one could be worse. Fortunately, so far, we're hearing that, well, keep our fingers crossed, it might not be, but it has the potential. So it has been a changing situation along the way. And we will go back to the beaches at the first opportunity, if not for a whole day, part day.
In terms of the U.S. advisory against Trinidad and Tobago, what's your view on the matter?
My view on the matter is when you're big, you're large. we don't have a single Omicron virus in our country so far. And we have not declared anybody persona non grata. And people who are propagating it, putting sanctions against us, that's what happens to you when you're a small country. But I must say that these things have a lag time to it. And we're hoping that that doesn't stay in place too long, because we work very closely with the United States. But it's not one level that decisions are made. We had the same thing with Britain, you know. I went to England the other day for the COP conference, and my team and I, we almost had to pass through some very difficult restrictions, but fortunately, just about the time when we were about to go there, they lifted the restrictions. So some people who might be worse off than you might be categorizing us in a way that we don't think is reasonable, but we don't really let that guide us too much. We know how these things go. Sometimes there are local pressures where it's coming from. We have our own local pressures. We have our diaspora and so on. But we have been managing reasonably well, and we are, in fact, we cooperate a lot with the United States.
Before I pass the mic, this is just one of my final questions. What advice do you want to give to the electorate going into the THE elections on Monday?
What?
What advice do you want to give?
Advice? There's only one, there's only one advice I can give people in Tobago to vote piano. But seriously, I would like to tell Tobagoans that this election is very serious. It's not an ordinary election. It probably is the most, since 1980, this might be the most serious election, because what is on the table is the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. And as Prime Minister, I understand that very clearly, that this is a very dangerous development. If an electorate in Tobago chooses a manifesto that says that secession is the ambition, then we're going down a road that I personally don't support, that my party doesn't support, and I don't think is in the interest of the average Tobagonian. This is not about pothole and grant and time to change. This is about whether Trinidad and Tobago will remain as a unitary state. And I am fearful that there are people under UNC guidance who could accidentally go down that road until they go too far.
Prime Minister, I want to go back to COVID,
So,
safer than politics. I recall maybe in June or July of this year, in this very room, you said you had sent a team from Trinidad to ensure that the services being offered in Tobago were par with what was offered in Trinidad. Between then and now, we've been promised additional ICU beds. We noticed yesterday that there were 7 people in ICU when previously we were told there were 6 beds. I also want to sort of add to this that I have a very close relative who was fully vaccinated, but because that person also has a history of respiratory problems, that person ended up in the ICU. Fortunately, had a good result. But it is not okay in my mind to suggest that only people who are not vaccinated would end up in the ICU because other people would as well. And we continue to be promised the additional ICU beds. First, it was filling out this physical space. Then it was the question of getting staffing to staff the ICU unit. And we have no indication that either thing has actually really happened to bring us to the place where we have both additional ICU beds as well as a full parallel healthcare system, as opposed to a step-down facility at the fort in Tobago as yet. And with the increase in cases, that appears to continue to be a growing challenge.
I wouldn't want to hazard a number or answer not having the latest information in front of me. But the last time I checked on this matter of the expansion in the number of ICU beds, I was satisfied and told that there were an expansion taking place, the process. And the expansion, I think they were looking at 6 additional beds. And each bed takes a certain amount of highly qualified staff. And I don't know, as I'm speaking to you now, whether they were able to staff 6 beds. But I want to say, though, that given the rate at which the infection would grow, given the history of the virus, it is not reasonable to expect that we can proportionately increase the amount of ICU beds to maintain the level of service, because the virus is infecting far faster than we can put beds. And when you consider 12 or 15 ICU beds in Tobago, that is a good stock for a population of 60,000. When we started out as a country in the parallel healthcare system, we had a certain number of ICU beds, an HDU. And very quickly, we had to grow that. We had difficulty importing staff. Luckily, we were able to bring in about 100 and something high quality staff to help out. But it is not something that you can say, okay, well, we're getting twice as many people now, so we'll have twice as many ICU beds. The number of ICU beds will lag behind in a situation where the infection level is delta rate. So I couldn't give you the specific today, and I don't want to hazard it because I know you're going to say I came here and told you something which is not true. I don't want to hazard that. But I checked, I think it was last week, and one of the managers here gave me comforting information that they were going in that direction. But in the meantime, people are in fact feeding the virus. There are some people in the population who are feeding the virus. There are some people who are refusing to be tested when they are symptomatic. And because they don't want to be tested, because if they test positive, it will restrict their movement. And what is the corollary of that? You go untested and you move. And what you're doing if you're infected and you're moving, you're infecting people. That is what is going on in some situations. So that brings us to the point of how much personal responsibility do we exhibit, and how much enforcement of the regulations we can have in a logistically understandable arrangement. We can't put a policeman by everybody's door. We've had people who are home on restriction, turning up at parties or in the supermarket, just thinking that being restricted is just too much. So the virus enjoys all of that. I could simply continue to appeal to people that if you are sick in Tobago or in Trinidad, if you are sick or you think you're sick or you think you've been exposed, help us out. Isolate within the family. Because the first set of people you infect is your family. If you don't care for them, and of course, George, you mentioned a person who was fully vaccinated and got the virus. That is a possibility. And that is where that is where the vaccine really comes into play. That here it is, I am infected, but thank God I am vaccinated, especially if you have comorbidities. Because without the vaccine, you could easily have been counted among the numbers of death for the day. And that is the danger we're living with. But unfortunately, some people think it's something to be cavalier with. Right? So we could simply, the vaccines are available. The threat of mutation is with us. The benefit of vaccination is also known to us. And of course, we can take the horse to the water. Can't force it to drink. That is what the protest is about, accusing us of forcing the horse to drink. We have not done that. But I've said before that the people who have vaccinated themselves in the national program to protect us from the virus, they must get a benefit. And those who prepare themselves to run the gauntlet because they are lucky or because they are strong or because they are young, they have a responsibility to the others. And finally, our response cannot be to lock the country down. Because you in Tobago, you more than anybody else in this country knows what happens when the country is locked down, because your lockdown continues. Because until the beaches are open to generate your beach economy and your tourism around the beaches, you will remain outside of your comfort zone and your earning zone. You know that.
My son, maybe the political question. You said that the PDP is being supported by the UNC. But it looks like the UNC broken because the PDP is not spending very money. They look to be running a very, very cheap campaign.
Sometimes it's not all about money, you know. It's not all about money. I can't speak about the PDP and their ability to fund a campaign. It all depends what kind of campaign you're running. But what I can defend is that they are in fact promoting the UNC agenda of secession for Tobago. That is what they're promoting. And you would see the PR officer of the UNC indicating on a video that secession for Tobago is the UNC agenda. You heard it from the PDP leadership, and you see them physically promoting maps with boundaries between Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, claiming that they are disenfranchised if those boundaries are not put in place. It was interesting, last week Thursday, yes, the cabinet approved the acreage of Tobago, about 4 or 5 blocks of Tobago. Got cabinet approval last week. Minister Young is going away in a couple of days to Houston. We're going to promote those blocks to oil companies to come and explore for hydrocarbons off Tobago. That's where it's at. The seismic work has been done. You would have heard the fishermen talking about them being affected by seismic work. That's the first thing you do, seismic work. And after that, the acreage go out. And while that is where we at, you have Tobago telling you they want to secede because we have oil and gas or we have hydrocarbon to come and we will be better off. I'm a geologist. That is what is the risk you're facing. So and I know who's behind it, and I know who's supporting it in Tobago. And I'm simply saying to Tobagonians, this election is important because that is what is on the table. That's what's on offer.
Good afternoon. Carissa Douglas, TTT Limited. Dr.
TTT?
TTT, yes.
TTT is limited now?
TTT Limited, yes. It's not on my badge. Yes.
That means you're all making money. Very good, very good. I must say, let me just say this. I'm very pleased at the sort of young people that TTT has promoted on air. I'm very pleased at what TTT has done, and I think you're one of them, so carry on.
Thank you, Rowley. Yes, so my question is with regard to the ICU situation. I know you mentioned that you are unsure as to the staffing for each ICU bed here, correct? But I remember earlier this year, the health minister mentioned that you all were bringing in some ICU nurses, and some of them were supposed to be coming to Tobago. What is the update with that?
I don't have an answer for you on that specifically, but I do know that we did in fact bring in about 100 and something specialists. What you call them? ICU nurses. They are specialist nurses, and a few doctors as well, I think, and support staff. And they were spread throughout the system. And as I said earlier on, whatever comes into the country, Tobago has benefited either, for example, if they did not send one of those Cubans to Tobago, it may be that they sent a Trinidadian to Tobago who is replaced in Trinidad by a Cuban. You know, that's how it might go. But Tobago is not left out.
My other question and my last question is with regards to the nomination day situation here in Tobago. I know you may not have been here, but you may have seen it on the media in terms of the numbers, the supporters, the behavior. One politician, particularly Dr. Denise Oyafat Angus, mentioned that she was quite displeased with the attitude and the behavior of the supporters in light of the COVID situation. She's also stating that she believes strongly that the numbers that we are seeing now is related to the situation on nomination day. What are your views on that? And two, going into election day on Monday, we know persons may get excited after 6. What advice you wish to give to persons in light of the COVID situation still?
Well, first part, I have not been listening to Dr. Angus, so I don't know what she was saying. But if that's what she said, that is not the kind of analysis I expect from a trained person. Because if it is the election that is causing the Tobago increase, what is causing the increase in County Victoria, County Caroni, and St. George East, where the increase is in fact greater than, the absolute numbers are greater than here? The numbers that you hear every day, the bulk of those people come from other areas. That, what you just said, there's a repeat of this story about the Easter vacation caused spike to be because people were called to Tobago by the Prime Minister. People were called to Mayaro too. I didn't see anybody saying that they had a problem. Right now, I have not seen any support for that argument. But having said that, I want to say to all persons, congregating is a dangerous activity, whether it is for protest march or for nomination day. In this pandemic, congregating is a dangerous activity. Try and avoid it. And legally, you are not supposed to be in a group of more than 10. Right? That's what it is.
2 final questions.
Yes.
Camille McKechnie, Tobago Channel 5. I just wanted to ask if people on quarantine can vote, 1, and 2.
If people on quarantine can vote?
Yeah, if they could come, if they can vote, if there are any provisions for them to vote.
If you are infected and you are on quarantine, quarantine means quarantine. An infected person in the pandemic is to remain in quarantine. If you are an infected person, I don't know how many infected persons they have in Tobago, but if you are COVID positive on election day, if you are COVID positive, you can't get up and say, well, I'm COVID positive, but I'm going to vote, because you will then be breaching the quarantine procedures.
Okay, final question. With over $40 billion and the PNM in control for 21 continuous years in Tobago, what do you feel accounts for Tobago's continued heavy reliance on the national coffers? As you say, Tobago's annual income is $200 million, and Tobago spends approximately $2.4 billion annually.
Okay, but what is that? What that question is about? Tobago's economic contribution, whether it is taxes or rates or whatever it is not really the Tobago's worth or net involvement. Tobago has a small economy. We've been trying to grow this economy, but the dependency that is held out to Tobago is no more dependent on the treasury than anywhere else in Trinidad and Tobago. There's nothing that is available in the government of Trinidad and Tobago that you get here in Tobago, that some equivalent is not had in Trinidad, identical or equivalent. So you have executive authority to manage your portion of the budget, right? And that stands out. But there are people in Trinidad who get, I mentioned the other day, the cost of the ferry service. But what is the cost of the highway service from Port of Spain to Point 14? We're building a highway to Point 14 now, it costs $7 billion. I don't hear that, I don't see that being spoken about by those who will use it, including those of us in Tobago when we go to Point 14. So be careful with that argument. That is the kind of argument that is being fed to Tobagonians, and if they don't understand it, they will make a mistake. Right? We are part of an integral whole. And if it is that there are shortcomings, then we address the shortcomings. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thank you all very much for coming. We have one final question.
Mr. Prime Minister, just tell us your views on the COVAX calling on St. Vincent to pay for the vaccines donated by Trinidad and Tobago.
I wasn't aware of that, but I'm not surprised, because that was the thought. That is bureaucracy gone mad. And I'm taking your word for it that is happening, because I have not heard that from any authority. But it was raised at the time when it was offered. The option of the government of St. Vincent was to have allowed those vaccines to expire and be dumped. We were in a position to make use of them. And it was against that background that the government of St. Vincent took the decision that they prefer to have them utilized in Trinidad and Tobago than to have them expire and be dumped. The bureaucrats at PAHO are saying it was our supply to you, and if you let anybody else use it, you're going to have to pay for it. Of course, they are blind to the fact that the vaccines in a pandemic was made to be utilized by people who wanted to use them. So I'm not surprised bureaucrats do things like that. Thank you all very much, and good afternoon. Page 19, yes, you can view page 19 at your heart's leisure. You will.